It's great, Christmas is coming, everybody likes that, but the only problem is they start releasing way too many movies all at once. The really strange case this year is that a lot of them are also really good. We already had Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and now we're getting the likes of Mary Poppins, Bumblebee, and Aquaman, so it's becoming pretty busy. But right now, I saw Mary Poppins Returns. Is the sequel to the 1964 film, so that's gotta win the record for longest gap between the original and the sequel. Actually, I think the one who really has that trophy is Bambi 2, seeing that that was released almost 60 or 70 years after the original, which is also done by Disney, so I guess Disney really likes to take their time on sequels. Mary Poppins Returns is a sequel I didn't really see them making, because the first film, I mean, it's a classic, but it did seem like something that was so sacred and untouchable for Disney to even try to do anything with. I know they sequelize everything nowadays, they make everything into a franchise, but Mary Poppins has always stood as that one thing that's Disney that they don't really market a ton, they don't try to sell the characters all the time, and maybe that's because the franchise itself isn't popular anymore, but I think it's still well known enough for people to want more sequels, to see more stuff come from it. It's pretty much a national treasure at this point, so how do you make a sequel of that? But Disney managed to pull it off. Emily Blunt stars as Mary Poppins alongside Lin-Manuel Miranda, who plays Jack. He's kind of the film's Bert this time around, but there are some differences here and there. This movie is doing what The Force Awakens did. Yeah, it's a new story, but it follows a lot of the same basic beats from the original story, and I was kind of worried about that going in. I thought it was mostly just going to be a remake, and it can kind of feel like that, but what I really appreciate this time around is that, I don't know, I almost feel like I care for the situation a lot more than I did the first time around. Don't get me wrong, the first movie is great, and I think the story is really good, especially the moral, but the trope has been done so many times at this point. You know, the father who's too busy at work and doesn't give enough time to his children. Well, yeah, we've seen that before many times by now. Mary Poppins was kind of the first to do it, so I guess there's that, but the movie does it better than most of the rip-offs anyway. This movie has a really compelling father character who is just stuck in this rut of the Depression era. And Mary Poppins returns to Cherry Tree Lane, she meets up with Michael and Jane again, and they don't seem to remember any of the magic from the first movie. They remember her, but now that I think about it, at the end of the first film, they never really said goodbye to her. She mostly disappeared, and I guess when they were that young, they maybe thought, oh, the father stopped paying for her to be here. They probably never even realized that the father didn't pay her at all. That's why they were questioning about affording her in this film, which was kind of funny. And like the first movie, they go on a lot of funny, great adventures. There's an animated sequence, which was a lot of fun. It's great to see 2D in a Disney film again, you know, let alone actually seeing it in a film in general. Just seeing 2D animation is great. But a lot of songs were just putting a smile on my face. There's a scene where they go into a bathtub and it turns into an ocean, and the song is really memorable. I was singing it when I left the theater. I was singing a lot of songs when leaving the theater. That's the thing, this movie had a lot to live up to because the first movie is known for so many songs. It's not like it's one or two big showstoppers. No, they have like the entire soundtrack is memorable. And this time around, I wouldn't say every single song is just as good as the first movie, but there's a couple that it gets up there, and I'm really happy for that. I was really hoping for something to be as big as Step in Time. They try. I don't think it's nearly as great as Step in Time, but it still was a lot of fun to watch. It goes on for super long, and the characters are just a lot of fun to watch. I do like Michael and Jane now that they're growing up, and I like how their personalities have evolved. Michael has lost his wife. Now, that's a common Disney trope. I was like, are they really doing this again? But the way the movie does it, there's a song that he sings in the attic all alone, and it really actually hits you. It works really well. You would think for a trope that's so common, Disney especially wouldn't be able to pull it off again, but they do. And I really like that this time around, the child actors are really good. The first movie, they were okay, but, you know, I think it would be the most distracting part of the movie in total. But this time around, the kid actors are sometimes stealing the show, which was really nice. Maybe their characters aren't super interesting or anything like that, but they're still putting on a great performance. And the story just moves at a nice pace. It's exactly what you would expect from a Disney Mary Poppins sequel. It almost feels like this movie was written right after the first movie, and you can almost think that this movie, despite some of the CG, that it could have been released right after the original. There's nothing really, there's no meta humor in there, there's no weird fourth wall jokes or anything like that. It really is in the same exact tone as the first movie. The Disney princesses in Wreck-It Ralph 2 just a month ago were pointing out the sexist problems with some of the movies that they're in individually. But this movie, it doesn't make fun of the first movie, or it doesn't try to be a modern take on Mary Poppins. It's just Mary Poppins again, and I really enjoyed that. I guess the only thing that people might not like, there's a scene with Meryl Streep, and I don't know, that was the one time where I was like, it was kind of taking me out of it. The first movie did that too. You know, they would meander and sometimes stop the story in its tracks and go off on this little tangent and have a little fun. I think the Meryl Streep one might be a little too much for some people. I could see that, just because it was a little off-putting to me. Some people might be expecting more out of this, especially with what Disney's been able to make nowadays, but I still had a really good time watching this movie. It had an excellent score to it, great music, it looked really good. I mean, it had good cinematography, and it matches the tone of the first movie. So, with all that, I'll give it a 4 out of 5 stars. So what do you think of Mary Poppins Returns? Do you think they should just let the original classic be? Or are you really happy with what they did with this new film? And what do you think of Emily Blunt? I, for one, really loved her. You know, for a second there, she was taking me out of it because I was like, oh, this isn't Julie Andrews, but, you know, is she doing what Julie Andrews did, or is she doing her own thing? But I gotta say, after, like, her being in the movie for 10 minutes, I completely forgot it was Emily Blunt. I was like, oh, this is Mary Poppins. So she sold me. She's great. Go get that Oscar.
Thank you for watching the video. A special thanks to Movie Johnson, Ryan, and Lucas for supporting me on Patreon. If you'd like to be like them and get exclusive access to content and blogs, and even request reviews monthly, please click on the Patreon link, and thanks for your support.